So I'm making this baking tutorial to help out for Mario Kart 8. In this simple setting, I have a ground, a plane, a cube, a sphere, and a cone. I also have some lights set up, and it'll help with showing how to bake ambient occlusion and how to bake shadows as well as light maps for your map. So once you have your objects where you want to, I'm going to go ahead and place the sun, and you also want to make sure you're in cycles mode. By default it's on EVs. You want to send it to cycle because that's the only place we can bake, and then press Z or Z for this pie menu. You want to go into render, and with your sun or your light selected, you want to go into the light properties of it and make sure it's not on point. I think by default it's on point. You want to change it to sun and mess with the color that you want to have it depending on your map. If it's nighttime, you might not want it white, you might want it like nighttime colors or whatever that might be, whatever color your map stage might be. Then the strength determines how much sunlight, whatever. If I put 1 here, you see it's pretty dark, whatever. So 10. The angle here, if we look at the sunlight for the angle, you can have very sharp if you have it at 0, and the bigger it gets, the more it like diffuses the edges of that shadow. So I'll keep mine somewhere like here, like in 14-15 area, so you get some like strong initial start shadows, and then they slowly diffuse, fade out. Okay, and once we have this, you want to make sure all your objects in your scene have a second image texture. So you want to go to press Shift A. By the way, I'm in the shading workplace, and in here in the node editor place, I'll press Shift A, texture, image texture, and we're going to create a new image, and I'll call it ZW, whatever, CW. And then the width and height, this is determined on your map's needs, your baking needs for your map. You can have they have to be in powers of 2. You can have the width and height different, so like your width can be 4096, which is 4K. Your height be 2094. But for this example, I'm just gonna keep it 1024 by 1024. Alpha, I like to have it on just so I can see where things are. Some people don't. Hit OK, and then in this section, you want to go ahead, drop down, and find the CW image. This is your new image where the baking will happen, and then we want to go ahead and create a new UV layer for all of these objects. So select this. Oh, by the way, sorry, since this image texture is on the ground only, we need to copy it into every other object. So copy it, select the sphere, paste. Did I not copy it? Alright, let me copy again, and paste, there we go, and then paste onto the cube one, and then on the cone, paste it again. So now each one of these has the same image texture, since I will be baking all of this into one image texture. And so now create a second UV map, UV layer. You want to give it the same name, so I'll call this bake with a capital B on the ground, bake with a capital B as well here, and bake on the cube as well, capital B, and the last one for the cone, bake with capital B. Okay, and now that we have that, you can select all these four. Edit mode. Hit tab to go into edit mode on all four of them. Select them all. Press U. Smart UV unwrap. Set your island margin to something like 0.030. Hit OK, and it should unwrap your UV meshes on all those objects into your CW image without none of them overlapping each other. So if I select, for example, the ground floor, you see it's this cube in the corner. Alright, so now we have a second UV and all of these are wrapped. Okay, so now let's go ahead and go into the render properties, and in your sampling section, you want to go under, there's a viewport and render, and you want to go into the render section. And your samples determine how great the quality is on your baking, you know. And then once you set that to something that you like, you want to go into the bake tab, the bake section. By default, this one's like all the way in the bottom, and so it's like somewhere down here. So you want, I bring it up because, you know, this is where I am, and so I want to save here before I bake. Make sure that all your image textures on each object is selected last. Okay, make sure your sunlight, the camera here is on so that it's for your render bake. Okay, and your UV maps, like I said, second UV layer has to be selected while the first one is on with the camera. That's fine. So going back to here to bake, we want to switch into ambient occlusion since we're going to bake it first, and then we hit bake while all these four objects are selected. The sun doesn't need to be selected, and so ambient occlusion this is for the tone. It's going to do it per image, so you'll see it go 4 times into 100 because it's going into each one. Alright, if we hold, it's done, and so now we have our ambient occlusion. What we want to do is save this image, so go to image and then save as, and place it somewhere where you would like. I created a bake folder, and I'm gonna call this AO bake, whatever, you know, doesn't matter. I'll save it as PNG. Hit save. Now I want to go ahead and change it to my shadows and hit bake again, still keeping the same setup and the unwrapping from when we first started from the AO, because that's very important that you keep that same UV unwrapping for the same bakes, including even your light maps. So anywho, it's all the same. Hit bake and wait for it again. Now we're getting the shadows, and then after this we'll bake the light maps, and then I'll show you what it looks like in Track Studio. So we have this baked already. We're gonna go and image save as, and you want to put this into shadow, or just give it any other name. I'm gonna just call it shadow bake. Again, PNG. Save. Okay. I also want to save my Blender file, you know, just in case it crashes or whatever. And now for your light maps, what you want to do is turn off the sun and make sure the camera's off, so that when you bake light maps, this light doesn't get turned on. I've already went ahead and created new sources of light. Okay, and let me go into solid mode so you can see them. These lights are Shift A, and when you go down to light, they're area lights. So I have these set up. When you select them and you go into the light properties, they're set as areas. There are different colors, different powers, the shape of them, etc, etc. So when we go to render mode to see, you'll see where I have RGB colors. Blue is on the back side, red on the right side, green on the left, and it would hit the light differently on each of these objects. Okay, so these objects you need to make sure that I mean these lights, make sure that you have the camera on for them. I disable the sunlight one in my renders, and then what I want to do, while I still have the same everything's the same, like unwrapping and the UVs, you want to go here and change it to diffuse, and you want to make sure you have direct, indirect, and color light enable, and you want to select your 4 objects again, still under the CW thing, because really we only need this as a placeholder for our bakings to go to, you know, they will, you know. So we're gonna go here, select bake, and we'll just wait for this to finish. It's got to do it 4 times. The reason why some of these are black is because they're on the bottom, their face is at the bottom, so the light isn't coming in. So these are done. File, image, save as. You want to save this as your light map image, just like map bake. Okay, and in the same folder, I want to save Blender file again. And just to give a heads up, I've already created a new track where I imported the DAE file for this, and this does not have the second UV layer, and I want to make that clear because most of you, when you start a new track, don't have a second UV layer. So if I go to shading and I go to, say, scroll down to AO, there's nothing in it that's going to be seen there. Shadow is not going to be seen there, neither your light map, because we don't have it in there yet. Okay, so but before we go into there, there's a step where we have to place the AO and the shadow into one image. So I'll drag this into Photoshop, and it'll place it there, and just so that I can see where it's at, I'll place a new layer under it and fill it with black. So my top layer is my AO. And so what I want to do here, again, like I said, I want to import the shadows and light maps and AO, sorry. So I want to make sure this image that I imported with the shadows is right in, it's in the dimensions of this area, and they're the same. Remember, when we bake them, they're the same resolution, like dimensions, which was 1024 by 1024. So let me just double check here. Yep, 1024 by 1024. And so what I want to do here is copy the shadow, select all, and just copy it, hide this layer, go into this layer 0 with the AO, and I want to go into the channels. AO goes on the red channel, and green is the one that holds the shadow, while blue is going to be filled with all black. So I want to select the whole blue and fill it with black. I'll deal with it in a bit. Actually, you know what? No, let me deal with it right now. I'll go ahead here, enable this black layer, and then just merge that down right there like that. So the blue layer is all black now. the green layer, I'll select it all, delete, and then I'll paste. Remember, I copy the shadows. Now I'm pasting it into the green channel. The red channel has the AO, okay? And when you view them all together, this is what it looks like. And as you can tell, for some reason, they are not aligned. Like my green channel, I think is the one that, let me delete that and go file. I did copy it, and so I'll go edit, paste, and place, spatial, paste and place. There we go. Now they're overlapping. They have to be overlapping. Okay, that was a mistake on my part, you know, not pasting in place instead of just regular pasting. Pasting in place copies its exact location, pasting it together. So now that we have that done, we can get rid of this shadow bake one, and we can go ahead and save as this image, and we'll call this AO and shadow with PNG. Save it. Okay. Alright, now that we have this, we can see it here. What we need to do now is bring these images, this one, our AO and shadow, and our light map, into Track Studio. So we want to go ahead and go into Textures folder, right click, import texture, select your AO shadow and your light map. I'm holding down Control, clicking on the second one, and then hit open. Your AO and shadow has to be BC1 UNorm, so change that to that, and light map has to be BC3 UNorm, and then hit OK. They should import into your textures right there. Okay, and same with your light map. Okay, they're in there. Now what we need to do is assign them to our mesh, but remember, it still doesn't have our second UV layer. So what we have to do is make sure that, let me go into solid, that we export our map again, our DAE. Now because they have the second UV map, we have to export it and update it. So export DAE, go my DAE file, make sure selections only is on. Geometry, if you have modifiers that you want to apply, you want to hit that, export, and it should be exported for objects. Great. We'll go in here into the Track Studio, replace, and update our DAE file. DAE, click open, and there, it should have updated it already. And if we go to our materials and whatnot, when we go down here on our materials, let me make this wider. Let's see if I can make it. Okay, so we have our AOB, albedo, normals, peculiar. Okay, so here on our cone, we want our basic bake ST0, which is our shadow map, light map. We want to double click it, select our image texture with it, and it should be there. You should see it here like this. Our light maps, we want to go ahead and do the same. Double click on there and find our light map bake, place it on there. It should be fine. Okay, do the same for the next one, the next other objects. Okay, wood as well. Let's click on the AO and light map. Okay, since we, like I said, we baked them all into the same image texture, image file, Lightmap. It should be there. Alright, so I had to pause it in a moment ago because when I looked at the results, I realized that the floor here, the face orientation of it in Blender was wrong. It was facing the wrong way. So if we look at it here, it was red like this, and I went ahead and like had to go into edit mode and switch it. Sorry, I just want this face. Yeah, and flip it so that it's blue. That's how everything should be. I accidentally flipped it right. Recalculate outside, inside, I guess, and then flip. So it's supposed to be all blue like that, and the objects on the ground were, but the ground wasn't. So I went ahead and rebaked the shadows and the light maps, which is this cube right here in this section. You can see the shadows there. And I went into Photoshop, went into my green channel and updated it as well. Saved the image again. I went ahead and re-imported it and or updated it in the texture folder. And so now we can take a look at it. So here we go. We're going to shadow here. Scroll down to AO. You can see the AO on the objects right there. There are ways to make the AOs, the ambient occlusion, either stronger, darker, or extend out further or extend shorter. It's up to you how you want it on your map. I don't go into details with that. You can always search online how that's done. And then here are the shadows, and everything's selected right now. That's why we have a white line out there. You can see shadows are a bit, I guess, quadratic, and it has to do, I guess, with the settings I use in my sample right here. I put 150. Obviously, I think if I would have gone into like 300 or 200, I would have probably gotten smoother shadows, better shadows. And you can do that on your map. Just keep in mind that more samples requires more baking time, and they also do increase your file size. So you have to balance that out on how many samples you want for your image size, for your image, and then follow the rest. Just combine the channels and put it together and import it. And here's the light map. The light map here again. Quality could have been much more better if I would have gotten high with a higher render value, but you can clearly see where the lights were, the green, the blue. I'm not sure why the blue came out purple here, looking here, but you can tell on the reflections here. Where it's hitting, you can see it's blue. And yeah, that's how you get your bakes for light maps and shadows and ambient occlusion into Mario Kart 8 modding and into Track Studio. Of course, you would just hit save and then test it out in your map. I hope this helped you guys, and happy modding.